So let's just talk about, you mentioned, because we've talked obviously before, that in punk rock, all your debits became credits. Your pain and your struggles actually gave you street cred. So, how
Correct.
did that early experience of being valued for exactly who you are, how, how did that shape your approach in business and branding today?
I appreciate the question because it's one of those things that sometimes is weird to talk about. I came from a household that was very much of its time. Parents raised kids in a certain way, and I don't even necessarily think this had a lot to do with my upbringing, but I always felt like I was uniquely not designed to be in the world. I always felt like I was outside of my class. I always felt like I was a little bit of the weirdo all the time. I never really felt comfortable in my own skin. And when I found punk rock, and this was back in the 80s, I was essentially a child, 11, 12 years old. And there was a lot of cassettes going around my neighborhood of just crazy music, right? So I ended up getting some of these cassettes, and it was punk rock music. And it felt so accessible because the music wasn't like music on the radio. It was raw, it was unhinged, it was screaming. And when I found that there was actually a punk rock scene in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, I engaged it to find out that the ideals of the scene and how much I felt like for the first time in my life, for me outside, I felt really embraced by a scene of people that, yeah, my debits became credits there. It was my struggles in life as a kid, being a weirdo, all that stuff it was really embraced. And I found a lot of mentors in that scene from people that to be frank, our society would not consider mentors. These were, let's be real, they were criminals. They were people that were in and out of prison. They were not living their lives in a way that most people would think is successful, but they had a lot of wisdom and they had a lot of love for a kid like me to be better.
Yeah.
And so punk rock for me it really has defined it and continues to define my life.
Yeah. I think a lot of times when life occurs for us, good, bad, or ugly, we can end up in places that are just not normal. Everybody likes normal,
Yeah,
except for you and I, of course.
correct.
So you shared some profound advice from an older gentleman in recovery, right? He
Yep.
said, take your gifts, be of service to others, work 12, 14, 16 hours a day on what you love, and then the money will eventually come. That's pretty counter to most career advice, right? Especially if the parent is talking to a child, they were like, oh my God, become a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. So, can you walk us through how you applied this philosophy and just what actually happened when you actually lived it?
And I was one of those people that I think most people would have said, "Hey, Randall, he's a low bar guy. He's not going to college. He's not going to do any of that stuff." And when I got into this punk rock scene and I played in bands and stuff, yeah, and I ended up being addicted to drugs and alcohol. And I found myself in recovery at late 20 in when I was 26 years old. And I met a gentleman and I was like, okay, I know I should probably go to college because that's what people are supposed to do. I definitely didn't want to work the labor jobs that I had previously worked because my brain in being sober was so overactive. And so I thought if I could put this brain to use doing something more creative, maybe I could find a little bit more purpose in life. So there was a gentleman that just said, Randall, you find something you love, get good at it, give it to people as a gift, and then because you love it, you're going to work at it 14, 18 hours a day, and you're going to bet the very best you can be at it and just be of service to others. And eventually the money will come. Because I had asked him, do I just go to school for something that makes me a ton of money, make a bunch of money, and then do what I want to do? Or how do I do this? And that was the advice that he gave me. So and that's exactly what I did. I just applied to art school. I applied to Columbia College in Chicago. I got in. I very quickly found out I could not afford art school. I wanted to be an illustration major. And so I pivoted to graphic design because I thought that seems not necessarily lateral at the time, but for me, it was the best thing because it really did allow me to explore type and image. And essentially, when I decided to make this decision, there was a lot of people, especially me being in early sobriety, You can only imagine the life you live in addiction. Yep, friends, family. Yeah, okay, you're going to do what now? And oh, how are you going to make money doing that? There was a lot of
Yep.
second guessing. Rightfully, I hadn't had a track record of a whole lot of follow through at that time, but I decided that no, this is going to be I'm going to follow through on this. I'm going to do it. I love it. I'm going to do it all the time. I'm just going to implement that. And that's all I'm going to do. Is I'm not going to have an expectation. And I think maybe if I had more of an expectation, I maybe would be further along career wise, success wise. But for me, I had to eliminate that idea of expectation because one, I was in recovery, and two, I didn't need more letdowns. So I really did take that guy's advice to heart and I did implement it. And it was a long road. Even my story is littered with people saying, you're not going to be able to do that. I remember I had college professors telling me, you will never work in graphic design. It just made me want to do it more.
Yeah.
You will never be able to design records for money. You'll never be able to do that. And I already was doing that in college. So I had I want to say a lot of adversity, but I think that adversity really did fuel me because of this punk rock background I had. I just always thought, you guys have no idea where I come from. You have no idea what I've been through. If I can get through that, I can definitely get through this. So I did apply and didn't have an expectation for money.